Hi there, my name is Phil from 2020 Sounds. Thank you for clicking on our channel. Today's video is a top 5, my top 5 favourite albums. This subject is a subject that is incredibly close to my heart. I have grown up with music all my life. It has been probably the one true constant in all my life, and I am 42 this year. Music has got me through, as it does many people, music has got me through the worst times and made the better times better. Some albums of here just jumped off the page and I knew exactly which they would be. Some albums, had I not listened to that album, I wouldn't have listened to another album by another band or another artist. So they become quite important because without that particular album, I wouldn't have gone on to listen to other things. That won't make any sense to you and I apologise. So let me start. So the number one album is Rumours by Fleetwood Mac, released in 1977. It's a phenomenal album. It's got everything. It's got ballads, it's got upbeat songs, it's got rock songs. It's the album that's got everything. It sold 40 million copies on its own, which is a staggering figure. Just to put that into some sort of perspective, Coldplay have released 8 studio albums and sold 75 million copies, which again is staggering, but it just shows you how big and how popular this album is. It's an album about breakup, it's an album about love, it's an album about unity. And all the band members at the time, so Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, were in a relationship and then breaking up during this album. John McVie and Christy McVie were in a relationship and breaking up during the making of this album. And Mick Fleetwood, who's the drummer, he was divorcing his wife at the time whilst making this album. So it's an album really that should never have worked, and yet it's become probably one of the most popular albums that's ever made. And as I say, I probably listened to, God knows how many times I've listened to this album, but it's certainly one of my 5 favourite albums without a shadow of a doubt. So that's Rumours by Fleetwood Mac. Number 2 is The Cure, Disintegration, released in 1989. Now, I get all the stigmas that's attached to The Cure, and I understand exactly why people would think you are a goth and everything else, all this that goes with that. But sometimes when you write an album, and this album's certainly about that, it's quite dark. Lullaby, Pictures of You, Closed Down, Fascination Street. They are some of my favourite songs, and this, without a shadow of a doubt, is my favourite album. Sometimes, and this is going to sound quite weird again, sometimes love, when you talk about love, it's not all happy and gift box wrapped. Sometimes love has a darker side, and this showcases that so wonderfully. If you listen to the lyrics or, take time to read the lyrics, you'll understand exactly what I mean. It's such a brilliant album. It's so dark, it's so moody, and it's so atmospheric. But at the same time, it's actually about love, which as I say, I absolutely adore this album. So that's The Cure, Disintegration. Number 3 is Interpol, Turn on the Bright Lights, which was released in 2002. Now, much like the album before, The Cure, Disintegration, it's a very dark, it's a very moody album. Released, as I say, in 2002. Paul Banks' lyrics are very dark. If you listen to NYC, it's about New York City and how dark and almost how like home that is for him. And then Leif Erikson, which is phenomenal. PDA, which is just a brilliant song. This band, for me, they're a 4-piece, but no one person is more important than the other in a band. So they only make the music that fits with the song. And that's really evident when you listen to the music with headphones on, because you hear all the little intricacies that are in the songs themselves. all the different guitar parts and bass lines and drum line. It's just a wonderful, wonderful album. And some albums are made to listen to with headphones. Maybe an odd thing to say, but this album is that. When you listen to the album, maybe in the car, you don't hear all that there is that's going on. When you listen to it with headphones on, you hear all the different parts, and I think it's just such a wonderful, wonderful album. So that's Turn On the Bright Lights by Interpol. Next one, number 4, is The Cranberries. Everybody else is doing it, so why can't we? Again, that was released in 1993. This album, as I said right at the beginning, is probably the album that got me into band music. The big songs on this album are Dreams and Linger, which went on to be, I think, in every single romantic film that ever came out in the 90s. This album transported the band onto massive global success. And the album that followed this was No Need to Argue, which again is a wonderful album, but those 2 albums alone were probably their best 2 albums. And they never really sort of captured that innocence of being a small band from Ireland, again, on any of the records before. And that's what makes this album so wonderful, because it's such an innocent album. It's just light, and it's just airy, and it's just atmospheric, and it's very difficult to explain why I like this album so much. I Still Do, which is the opening track on the album, is just a wonderful introduction to the album. And then you've got, as I say, Dreams and Linger, which are brilliant, brilliant songs. And then Waltzing Back, which is one of my favourites, and Pretty, which is such a wonderful song. They're just really beautiful, innocent songs, and it's just a wonderful album that kind of showcases that whole thing completely. And sadly, Dolores O'Riordan passed away in 2018. She took her own life, and that's such a sad thing, because she had just, I think, just one of the most beautiful voices, and I just think it's such a tragedy that she took her own life. And I think they didn't make albums as good as those first 2 albums after that. So that's number 4. Number 5 is Gene, Drawn to the Deep End. Gene are a band that nobody would have heard of. They came out in that Britpop era, sort of mid-90s. First album was Olympian, which I think was released in 1995. This is their follow-up, which was released in 1997. Gene never really got the recognition they deserved, because they were always compared to the Smiths. And I get those comparisons, and those comparisons are, you can see why they were. And as I said before, had I not listened to Gene, I wouldn't have gone on to listen to the Smiths and loved the Smiths albums and bought all the Smiths albums. But the reason why I like this album so much is because it's an album that's got so much. It's got fantastic ballads on there, Speak to Me Somebody, We Could Be Kings, and it's got like rock songs like Fighting Fit, and then my favourite song on the album, which is Long Sleeves for Summer. It's just, for me, it's a wonderful album. And these 5 albums really aren't albums that you guys would probably recognise and understand, but as I said before, these albums have probably been with me, say, throughout my teens and into my 20s and 30s. So I listen to these albums all the time. So they are my top 5 favourite albums. Thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate that. Love to know your comments and your feedback. So if you do have any questions, then obviously please let me know. Speak to you soon, and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. Take care.